Arne Slot has just done his first interview as Liverpool manager, and in that interview he said a lot of things, and in today's video we're going to break down 4 key areas that he spoke about in that interview and expand on that, and why Liverpool's plan for Arne Slot is really clever. We're going to first talk about what he's doing with Richard Hughes behind the scene, the new recruitment and hierarchy, his head coach role. Then we'll talk about his style of play and what he said in his style of play and his plans. Then we're going to talk about his recruitment, what recruitment's been done, what targets they're working on. Then we're going to talk about Arne Slot's preseason plans, because I feel like if I was a Liverpool fan, this is what I'd want to know about Arne Slot and what I'd want to know from that interview, rather than just him praising Klopp and Liverpool's squad and all of that, because I'm a Man United fan. I don't like the Liverpool praise. But one thing I will admit about Liverpool is their head coach plan and what they're doing with Arne Slot is really, really clever. Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards, the people Liverpool have brought in, their plan for Slot. I don't like how good and clever and well thought out it is, and how they've got good people making good decisions, because it annoys me that Liverpool think smart and they do good business. It just annoys me. But let's get into Arne Slot's interview. So what did he say? He said, me and Richard Hughes are calling each other almost every day. He said, obviously, right now he's on holiday, but it's a bit of family, a bit of speaking with Richard Hughes. They're already talking about how they can strengthen the team. So we're going to expand on that. He obviously spoke about him being a head coach and not a manager, and we're also going to expand on that. Arne Slot said this on being a head coach, and I think it's Arne Slot. I think he said it's Arne Slot. For me, it's normal. There isn't much change between a head coach and a manager. Being a head coach, I can prepare the team in the best way. Me and Richard Hughes are going to work together when it comes to transfers. And what essentially head coach is, and why I think this is such a clever model, and this is what Ineos are trying to do with Man United, and fingers crossed it works for us. But basically, Liverpool have this sort of way that they want to play, this vision of football they want to play, and they picked Arne Slot because he's not completely the same as Klopp, but he's the most similar to Klopp in terms of game style. They have their game style, the way they want to play, and they're going to recruit to play that game style, and they believe that Arne Slot is the best guy to coach that game style because he's done similar stuff at Feyenoord and he's had success with that. And we'll talk about his style of play in a second. And Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, who have this data-driven approach, the best in their industry, they've proven to be really good. The work that Hughes did at Bournemouth was brilliant. They'll be making the decisions on the recruitment, so Arne Slot can just focus on his coaching, his style of play, his principles, not worry too much about recruitment, but have a say on recruitment. So let's break down Slot's role and why I think this part is genius from Liverpool. Then we're going to talk about what Slot said on the style of play. Then we're going to talk about what Slot said on recruitment and what Slot said on pre-season in a second. But Romano obviously broke it down. Michael Edwards, CEO. Michael Edwards is, for me, one of the smartest guys in football. I did a video reacting to Liverpool not getting Amorim and going for Arne Slot. And I said, you know what? If I'm a Liverpool fan, I would trust Michael Edwards with everything. Like, if Michael Edwards views Slot as the best possible replacement, I would back that. Richard Hughes, sporting director, obviously come from Bournemouth. Julian Ward, technical director as well. I think he was formerly at Liverpool. He's come back. He was actually scouted by Ineos for Man United. And then obviously Pedro Marquez, who was director of football development. He's worked at Benfica, and Benfica, a very well-run club. If you look at it here, Richard Hughes, Marquez, Edwards, Slot, there's, Liverpool's new era. They've got some of the best people working around Slot. They've got Arne Slot, who suits the style of play that Liverpool want to play, similar to Klopp, and then they've got the best people around him to do recruitment for Slot, which we're going to talk about in a second. Bring in the right people, create the right environment for Slot. And as Slot said in his interview, he's very lucky that he's got a lot of the players that Klopp had with him because they're good players. It was said by James Pearce, Richard Hughes oversaw a data-driven approach at Bournemouth. Edwards regards him as one of the leading industry operators, and that Arne Slot will act as head coach at Liverpool, not a manager. Slot will take custody of first-team training while reporting to sporting director Richard Hughes. Both will report to Michael Edwards. So Slot will mainly work with Hughes, who will then report to Michael Edwards. So he's got good people around him. So let's talk about why Slot was chosen. Then we're going to get back into Slot's interview and what else Slot said. So obviously The Athletic said that Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes' criteria for a new coach was a distinct identity, dynamic, high energy and possession-based football, head coach rather than manager, hands-on training ground operator, able to harness Liverpool's iconic fan base, a good record of keeping players fit, and a history of improving players. And Arne Slot ticks all those boxes, which was why he was ticked. So Arne Slot then speaks about his style of play. He says on his style of play, to have the ball a lot, to have a lot of energy. The fans love to see a team who wants to do everything to win a game, and if the game is tough, do anything to turn it around. The players are still the same, which is the most important thing. Liverpool, what did we see when Liverpool went on that brilliant run? Energy, giving everything, having a lot of the ball, winning the Carabao Cup with the kids' energy. Liverpool, I think, almost ran out of steam towards the end of the season because they'd given everything. They weren't expecting to be in that tight race with City and Arsenal because they'd finished 5th the season before. And, at Feyenoord, there's a similar approach. Feyenoord players are incredibly fit. I was looking at the distance that Matt Wiefer covers compared to Casemiro, and I was thinking, wow, like the distance that the Feyenoord players run, it is crazy. And Arne Slot said this: "We want to implement our style of play as soon as we can. The playing style will not be completely different, but it would be strange if we would do exactly the same things, because although I'm in the replacement of Jurgen Klopp, I'm not the same to him." And basically, as I was saying earlier, Arne Slot has been chosen to replace Klopp because he's the most similar in his style of play, formation, sort of philosophy, but he's not the same as Klopp. He's not as transition-based as Klopp. There's differences there. You can't be completely the same. You don't probably want him to be exactly the same, but he keeps the similar principles. So what's Arne Slot's style of play? This is very brief, and this is from my video I did on Arne Slot months ago, so it could be outdated, but he does predominantly use a 4-2-3-1, but he has moved towards more of a 3-3-3 last season, which again is what you've mostly seen Liverpool do. It's high intensity, it's high press, it's counter press, and it's on winning the ball back, which you've seen Klopp do. One thing he does do is he likes his right back to invert and his left back to come more inside as a sort of a third centre back in possession, or hold the width. One thing he likes, that's Marqueza likes his centre back to come inside as his left back to come inside. Arne Slot likes his left back to keep the width and his right back to invert, vice versa, which probably suits Trent as well. He likes to have a high line with fullbacks and centre backs pushing up to leave less space between the lines. He has most goals from high turnovers, and he has lots of rotations on the right hand side. There was a period where I think it's when Trent was out injured, but you had Conor Bradley, McAllister, and Salah rotating on that right-hand side, creating this diamond for Liverpool. And that's when McAllister was went on that 10-game run where he was the best player in the world for 10 games when Liverpool looked good. If you look at his style, sort of on the ball, it's less transition-based than Liverpool. But considering recent performances, that could be a good change. Liverpool ran out of steam. They had a lot of injury issues. Transition does cause more injuries. It's about keeping the ball, and it's more of a slower, safe approach, and it is very possession dominant, but it still keeps lots of similar elements to Klopp. Fullback, the right back normally inverts and build up, and they do play out from the back well. They need players that are good and comfortable on the ball, comfortable inviting pressure, playing out from the back, and build up sort of switches between a 4-2 and a 2-4 build up shape, with the left back staying wide to stretch width. I was getting confused with Maresca for a second, and that's why for some reason I said the left back comes in as a third centre back. That's Maresca's style of play. In Slot's style of play, it is the left back holds the width, the right back inverts, obviously, or it could be the other way around. So off the ball, is that on the ball? I forgot to put his style of play off the ball. But obviously off the ball, again, it's very hard-working, covering mass amounts of ground. I accidentally copied my style of play in possession slide twice, but his style of play out of possession just requires players to be super fit, cover mass amounts of ground, be able to run at high intensity, sprint back, cut out passing lanes, win the ball back as quickly as possible. It's about winning the ball back and playing it forward, winning the ball back, playing it forward as well. And out of possession, Arne Slot's team often changes to a 5-4-1 to be more compact. They have a much better rest defence, and they have the second best defensive record in the Eredivisie. And winning the ball back, making sure they press high, win the ball back, makes it harder for opponents to play out from the back, which also helps them win the ball higher up the pitch, which links to the in-possession play. Now let's talk about recruitment, because although Slot has a similar approach to, of course, Klopp, elements of it are different, and I'm sure he'll want one or two players in. I think he'll probably maybe want a player that can replace Matip long-term, a left-sided player that could also play left-back. I also think he would probably want potentially a long-term DM, as Enzo was a short-term signing, and potentially another attacker, as I think Liverpool, they had a lot of chances and they weren't very clinical. Now, it has said that Arne Slot has revealed that former Borussia Mönchengladbach goalkeeping coach Fabian Ott will be part of his staff at Liverpool. The position has been filled in. That is the first position filled in. That is the first thing done. And he said that he wants this guy to come in because he knows his game model, his playing style, and he has been spending a lot of time thinking about recruitment and who he wants to bring into Liverpool. So Arne Slot said that it's been part of my time in the last few weeks thinking about recruitment, having lots of talks about with Richard Hughes about who he wants to bring into Liverpool. So who does Arne Slot maybe want to bring into Liverpool? Now, you've got to remember that Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards will be taking over most elements of recruitment at Liverpool. Richard Hughes will then report to Michael Edwards. This was just a list of names that Liverpool have been linked to. Playing a Euro, I think Liverpool really, really want, but I think he will go to Real Madrid. Pacho's definitely one to watch. Could be a really, really good player there. Reminds me a bit of Mickey van der Ven. Very good on the ball, very rapid. I think he would suit the Premier League, but he's only obviously been at Frankfurt one season. You obviously got Hinkapie, Calafiore, whose price is going up because he's doing well in the Euros. Levi Cole will, but I don't think Chelsea will sell him. But I do think he's a very good player. Obviously, Kudus, but that would depend on a big name being sold in attack. Somerville's another one they've been linked to. Bakayoko, I think, would be really, really good signing. I think Bakayoko's a baller. They've also been linked to the Feyenoord player Minte, as well as Weaver. But I think a lot of Feyenoord links like Gertruda and Hancho have just because of Arne Slot. I do think Weaver's one to watch. They've also been linked to Edison and Fofana, but they've been more ruled out the Edison signing. They were also linked to Coop Miners, potentially a facilitator type 9. It's said that Michael Edwards and Hughes were more of a fan of a facilitator type 9, more of a Firmino-esque kind of player that could facilitate the wingers, and the wingers become better goal scorers rather than a Darwin Núñez. But I think that Liverpool are going to keep with Darwin Núñez, and I think that Darwin Núñez is a very hit-and-miss player, but I think there's a very good player in Darwin Núñez. Now, guys, let's get into the final thing that Arne Slot said in his interview. Now, obviously, Arne Slot's interview, he said way more than this, but I wanted to just break it down into 4 bits and speak about that and what we know about Liverpool's plans, because if I was a Liverpool fan, this is probably what I'd want to know, like, from Arne Slot's interview, what he plans on doing going forward, what we're going to see in pre-season, what we're going to see style of play-wise, recruitment-wise. And I also think that Liverpool's approach for Arne Slot is very clever, and that's why I'm feeling a bit more confident about Man United, because Ineos are trying to go with a similar approach of head coach. I think it's a really smart approach. But also, I think that Arne Slot is a good manager. Now, Arne Slot said this on pre-season. He said it's about getting players fit and getting your game idea, your model into the players. We have quite a lot of time with a few of them, and it depends how far players will go into tournaments, how much time you have to work with these players. And I think that's a big thing. And I think it will make it a little bit more difficult for Arne Slot in his first couple months as Liverpool manager, because a lot of his players he may not have pre-season with because of the international tournaments. He's got a little bit less time to work with them. So I can imagine that is a little bit difficult for him. But yeah, he'll be working with players. He's had contact with a few players. I do think players like Gakpo potentially playing out wide under Arne Slot could work well. I think Gakpo was very good in that first game for the Netherlands. I think Gravenberch suits Arne Slot's style of play better. And I'm not just naming them because they're Dutch, but there's a few players at Liverpool that have been a bit hit and miss, like Gakpo and Gravenberch, that I do think is actually more suited to Arne Slot ball than actually Klopp's kind of style of play as well. There's some players like Luis Diaz that potentially could be sold as well. And I think Tsimikas may go because I don't think he's just good enough in general, let's be honest. But I do think that Arne Slot will be using pre-season to assess players. I do think that Liverpool's transfer business will be done a lot later this summer. I spoke to a source I have at sort of with connections to Liverpool Football Club, and he said, don't expect anything in June. He said it's going to take till July because Arne Slot does want to assess his squad. He obviously, spoke with Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards, who are lead on recruitment and all of that. And there will be sort of elements of, okay, if you can get Lenny Euro, let's get him because that's a really good market opportunity. But I spoke to someone that's got sources inside Liverpool, and it's like, signings could probably be very, very August-based. And there's an expectation that it will probably be 2 key signings and then 1 smaller signing. It's just from what I've heard from a source I have. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know, Liverpool fans, how are you feeling about Slot? I hope you found this video informing. Of course, you can watch his full interview on the Liverpool channel. I just picked out a few key points that he mentioned that I think gives an idea of what Liverpool's plans are moving forward. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.